Alright guys, so today we're going to break down compression. Shout out to all my OG supporters here on YouTube and Patreon. You guys, most of you guys hopefully already know a lot of this content about compression already, but there's a lot of new subscribers. People still come to me, in production lessons, and they still have they're still not really sure why they're compressing, and a lot of people are still just compressing because they feel like they have to. But let me break down so you can really understand simply the types of compression and when to use them, right? So the first thing that you want to know is that, or that you want to put in your brain that will help you out, is that compression is really boring and not interesting, because there's this overhype thing of oh, you got to compress to make your drums sound fat, that kind of stuff. You should delete all of that drivel from your brain. And what you want to do is you want to think of compression as one of the most basic and boring tools that you do use in music production, but it's not this thing to necessarily pimp out your track, So once you kind of understand that, then you can start to use compression in the right way and apply it in the right areas. And then when you do that, then you'll actually get a better mix down. You'll actually get a better track because then you've been compressing for the right reasons. So most of the time, I'll talk about a few, maybe 4 types of compression today. But the main goal, the main compression, what a compressor does is it simply narrows the dynamic range of a sound. So when you want to use it is when the dynamic range, think of it as there's bits of high volume information, there's bits of low volume information, So when those ranges are really, really high, that's when you want to use a compressor, because it's going to automatically take down the peaks. And then if you need to bring up the volume after that, you use the makeup gain to make it all louder again. But the whole point is that it takes down the actual peaks, So it's sort of squashing the dynamic range of a sound, yeah? So when is this going to actually be useful? It's going to be useful on those kind of sounds that are, the hair's going a bit mental. Someone's literally screaming in the distance as well. I hope they're alright. It sounds like a high testosterone kind of scream from a yeah, that's weird. Also, someone's put a cross up over there. That's strange. There's like a crucifix in the park. That never used to be here. Anyway, I digress. So, the main use of a compressor, my hair's going all over the place, isn't it? Just focus on the words, not the hair, alright? I'm speaking to myself. Yeah, the main use of a compressor is to flatten the dynamic range. So when is this useful? It's useful when you've got a vocal recording that has moments where I'm now, sometimes I'm really close to the mic and loud, and sometimes I'm far away and it's quieter. There's a different dynamic range. So then a compressor is good, so you can flatten it and get an overall, better kind of level that's sort of more consistent, so it's easier to mix down. Similar thing could be in a bass line as well. If you've created a bass line with loads of different samples and it's kind of all over the place, then a compressor can be good because you can level out the rough kind of volume levels of the basses. Also, maybe even when you're doing sub bass progressions that where the notes go up in in pitch quite high, or basses where the pitch changes and then it gets louder, compressor could be cool for that, for just knocking down the loudness of those higher pitched and louder bass notes, so the whole bass line is a bit more of even volume, But that's all you really need to know about a compressor. It's just to limit the dynamic range. So once you know that, you can apply it in the right places, So I always say this, you don't need to put a compressor on your drums, because what you'll do is you'll take down the volume of the loud part of the drums, which is the kick drum. And often the mix down is balanced around the power of the kick drum. So by weakening the kick drum, but by compressing your drums, you're essentially lowering the volume of that, and then you're kind of lowering the volume of the whole foundation of the mix down, So you want to compress on sounds that are too dynamic, that need to be evened out, or sounds that you actually want to push down in the mix, So you don't want to compress sounds that you want to be at the highest dynamic range and the highest volume. So that's the main thing about compression, right? But other forms of compression that we use, obviously, side chain compression, of course, that's really great. Side chaining whatever element to whatever other element, whether it's the kick and the bass, whether it's the vocal to the hi-hats. You know, sidechain compression is really useful, and you guys know this already, but that's just another way, you know, to use the compressor. But that's a separate, you're doing that when you're sidechain compressing, you're trying to achieve a different goal than when you're using a compressor normally. So normal compression, you're decreasing the dynamic range, making things more balanced and even in the volume kind of levels. And with sidechain compression, you're trying to solve conflicts between two elements and give one element priority and space over another one. Yeah, so it's a different use case for the compressor there, but you know, both still perfectly you know, good use cases, and you should be using both of those. You should be using the compressor in both of those kind of formats in your mixdown. Most tracks you're going to need to do a bit of both, you know. And then obviously there's other you know, ways that we can use compressors as well. So there's I'll brush over quickly parallel compression. I did a video about this recently, and this idea that if you use a parallel signal of your drums or your bass and you compress that, over compress it to change the dynamics, and then blend it back in with your original, that doesn't work so well very often because the harmonics tend to be just this quite similar still. Even if you've changed the dynamic shape, often the harmonics are still like very, very similar, and so in that case you don't really get like a great effect from doing it, you know. But as I mentioned on a video a week or two ago where I talked about parallel compression done the right way, if you actually change the harmonics of the parallel signal first, like you put it through convolution, you put it through distortion, then you do your parallel compression, then you've changed the harmonics enough, you've got fresh new frequencies that you can blend back in, and then you'll actually get like an enhancing effect that's more obvious, you know. Normal parallel compression without doing that kind of signal change first tends to fall pretty flat and doesn't get that great results, in my opinion, you know. And finally, the other way of using a compressor is if you're using it as an analog emulation, and this is where you get swamped by all these deals of mastering compressors and analog compressors, and I've tried a lot of them out, and it's rare to actually find one that actually gives you like a boost in like power in the low end, which is kind of what you want, right? So I have used the Shadow Hills mastering compressor a lot, though. I talk about that like loads, and I use that on the end of all my mastering chain. And there's a link down below in case you want to grab that. It's usually always on sale, but if you grab it through my link, you'll help out the channel as well, so feel free to do that. But yeah, it's not too expensive, and that's really the only one that I've ever really found that it basically, yeah, how can I say, it actually gives you a bit of a low end power boost, you know. But I've tried loads of other like analog emulation compressors to like try and, you know, enhance my sound, and a lot of them like don't really do what they say, or they don't actually sound that great, you know. But that's the other time you would maybe use a compressor for a different reason. It's like if you're trying to get like an analog sound and you're trying to like boost, you know, and get more power, but just know that like that's actually quite, you know, it's going to be quite subtle, and you're going to really have to look around for a plugin that does that well. You can find those, but you could also get a similar effect if you know, saturating things correctly and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, tying it all together then, you know, what is a compressor doing mainly, you know, in the classic sense? That's how you're going to be using it most of the time. The old camera ran out of battery there, but yeah, just finishing up the video. Yeah, most of the time you're going to be using a compressor like in the classic way, to like control the dynamic range, or you're going to be using it as a sidechain tool. Like that's kind of 90% of the time you're going to be using it for that. But don't overthink it. Don't think that you have to like compress stuff to get extra power. Think of it more as a boring mixing job, you know. So don't get like overhyped about compression in general. Just you know, hopefully this video helps you understand like what you're actually doing when you're compressing, and then with that knowledge you should be more confident in your mixdowns going in and like knowing, okay, I need a compressor here, okay, I don't need a compressor here, that kind of thing, you know. So anyway, thanks for watching today, my G's. Please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and comment down below, really appreciate it. And check out the other links in my video description as well. I've got preset packs available for Serum, Vital, Faceplant and Current. Some great sounds on there. You can book me for one-on-one lessons. You can hire me as a mastering engineer. And finally, you can join me on Patreon if you want to support the channel and jump into my Discord. We've got loads of cool stuff going on in there, and yeah, also other affiliate links you can find down below for mastering compressor and some cool D&B drum samples as well that I highly recommend. All right, that's it for me today. More from me soon. Much love.